There are not many retired civil servants who speak out on issues to do with democracy and rights. Somehow, the written code binding them during the service becomes the unwritten code post retirement. However, in recent years, more and more civil servants are speaking up, individually, in groups, through articles, and the social media. They have become a fairly strong voice in holding the government and the institutions of democracy accountable. Some have joined politics. A few have also contested elections. What is this attraction? Is it fatal or sustainable for the long term? In this episode, we speak to a respected civil servant who has taken the plunge into politics to get an insight and also his views on the forthcoming polls. Welcome everyone to another edition of Off Limits. Our guest today is the well-known retired civil servant Jawhar Sircar. He is now the member of the Rajya Sabha. He was the former secretary to the government of India, ex-CEO of Prasar Bharati, and he is well known now on the social media as well as outside it as a writer, a scholar who has written and contributed all across to internal, which means national and international journals. And he writes on everything from history to religion to contemporary affairs. So welcome, Mr. Sircar. It's very good to have you with us.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to ask you, start with a little bit about yourself, in the sense that of course, politics is very close to the civil service. Both of you work very, very closely. Mm-hmm. But why did you, isn't there a separate set of skills, more the Sir Humphrey kind for the civil servant and more gregarious and outgoing and skills for the politician, at least for the good politician who cares about the people. So why did politics attract you?
It's not politics to which I have come. I mean, I look at it completely differently.
Okay.
You see, there are certain constricting factors while you are in service. You don't put your conscience off to sleep. That's a wrong. Humphrey is not the best of examples.
Right.
Humphrey may be one of those who articulate how we convolute things. That's it. He's a bit of a joker, but never mind. Throughout service, we retain. I mean, we means those amongst us who keep thinking. There are some who give up thinking altogether. I'm afraid you see more of them, more of that type. But there's a huge amount of people in the official circles who serve the government. They are duty bound to. Under the Constitution, we have taken an oath to serve the democratic government that's been elected, irrespective of what we think about it, irrespective of what our friends and family think about them. You see, that's the best part of democracy. You may not like the minister who is thrust upon you, but you are duty bound to go on assisting him as long as he is within constitutional limits. Having said that, it was towards the end. It was very interesting. I was a bit of a student activist and got into as many problems as you can think of, and for the usual reasons that you would appreciate. And then all of a sudden, in 1975, I was co-opted to the IAS. As I keep saying, for absolutely no fault of mine. I took the exam as a chance, as a first chance at a little early age, because I had the pressure of getting married to, you know those usual complications.
Yes.
And somebody made a mistake, I got into the service. And then that part, I keep saying, is I jumped the barricade to the other side. I've now seen both sides of the barricade, but then I kept my trap shut. And with the experience, of course, which was different from others, of being on the other side of the barricade as well.
Right.
And to understand how they thought, because there were some who had come straight out of university and coaching classes without, I would put it, the experience of life.
Right.
I joined at a time when India was not a democracy. I joined during emergency. The very emergency that I was opposing on the other side, I now had to support. And it was a fascinating experience where how to keep your conscience ticking and how to still get about your constitutional job. But towards the end, after 40 years, I found we had actually stepped into a worse kind of emergency, except that it was not loudly announced from Qutub Minar. That's all. We knew. And that is the time I made up my mind that enough is enough and one takes a stand, even if one is branded as political. So the last 2 years of the Modi regime, when I was CEO of Prasar Bharati, were the most miserable years I spent in my life. So we had an interesting 2 years, which now you could term as a political fight, if you look at it from that angle. For me, at that point of time, it was a question of holding up to the principles for which I had been appointed or to a statutory post. They said a broadcaster should do this and a broadcaster should do that. I realized that there was a point up to which I could take it and a point up to which I couldn't take it. So I quit a few months before my tenure, only to keep my self-respect. But once I quit and went back to Calcutta, I found that somehow people were taking me as some sort of a rallying point. They had observed my moves or my career, and they had seen my writings, and I couldn't disappoint them.
Right.
Like I lashed out against demonetization, not from the political point of view, but from the point that it is an administrative disaster. Which it was, as you know. I took on those policies and I dissected them in public, and somehow my position moved on to be one would say strongly adversarial where Modi was concerned. So that is the time when I started thinking whether I should take a more active role. And since the left parties were already on the severe decline and were not being taken seriously by the people in Bengal, as in the rest of India, which is quite tragic. Since the left was not an option anymore, the Congress was not an option in Bengal anymore. And as you know, both have been wiped off. Wiped off means 0 seats. 0 seats in the assembly for the first time in history. For the first time in history, you've never seen. Yes. The left that ruled Bengal for 34 years has 0 seats, and not only disappeared, and not only that, the elections, by-elections, and the municipal elections and the elections that are held after that confirms that they are 0. They're 0. They're just not able to get their act together, or the people are not in any mood to waste their time on them. And people seem to have invested heavily in Mamata Banerjee, partly because she's an aggressive fighter.
Right.
Partly because she is an aggressive fighter and a no compromising fighter. That's the point. So
but you seem to have opted for a party with a one-person rule, or is it more democratic inside than it seems?
You see, there's a lot of debate going on within the party between the General Secretary and the MP and all that, which would reveal a certain amount of space for debate.
Okay.
Had it been a one-person party, this debate would not go on for the last fortnight on an everyday basis. Somebody saying this, somebody saying the other thing. So there is a certain degree of it, but Seema, I'm not into that part of it. Right. In the sense, I am not into into the hardcore politics of TMC. Okay. I have not been asked, nor have I volunteered, nor have I got in. In other words, I don't get into the nitty-gritty of politics there.
You're more like an advisor and a mentor.
I stick to areas where I have certain experience, like in parliament questions, debates, when there's a scope, in public interface. So I know the limits of my competence, which are very severe. I'm aware of my limits of competence. And at 70, you don't get into, at the age of 70, you don't get into politics for political ambitions.
Right.
You're a bit of an ass if you do.
Yeah, right.
So
But,
I'm here to voice a joint concern, and there was not much of a choice. The point is, there was it was the table.
The only option, actually, right?
The only option, and
Yes.
to that extent, I don't regret, because of all the leaders in India, with all the pluses and minuses, all of them have their pluses and minuses. Here is one who can give Modi a run for his money.
Okay.
Modi a run for his money. So that's the interesting part.
Now, you know what you just told us in a nutshell, I mean, the whole thing, but one thing that does stand out is the role of the bureaucrat, you know, where we can see a certain kind of polarization, especially when you have a very strong and more autocratic executive, like during the emergency when you came, and more so now. Like, there is a certain kind of division that is seen in the bureaucracy. Now, the serving guys, we don't see it that much, but definitely all those who have retired are definitely in different opposing blocks. You know, how does this work, and what kind of an impact would it be having on the bureaucracy that is serving? We can only draw as journalists our lessons from, or our signals and messages from those who have retired now.
I'll put it this way. It's not too difficult an explanation. Number one, people who are in service are duty bound not to open their mouth.
Of course, that's right.
So the fact that those who are in service are silent does not mean that they acquiesce, that they have surrendered.
Exactly.
They have taken their oath and their duty to serve the nation. Absolutely. In spite of the temporary drivers. In spite of the temporary drivers who drive the nation, they continue to do so because they feel the nation is a permanent body, and those who drive the bus come and go. They have their shift duties, as we put it. So many of them are like that. There's a second type of people everywhere who are, I would say, more tolerant of the intolerant. You have it everywhere, and we have a large measure. I think this compliance business that is drilled in from year one, be compliant, now don't go around playing Challe Murari Hero Bane. So don't do this. It sort of sinks into some and becomes what we call default reaction, that I'm not supposed to open my mouth. He may open up on a private conversation with you, but if you ask him to sign a petition, he won't dare Baba, na Baba. So there is that type also. There's a third type of humans who come into the IAS, IPS and others as well. The usual quota of human nature, who are Ji Huzur by nature. By nature, whatever you have said is the finest thing that has ever been said on earth. And they are there is a state of, there is a section of liquors. The best term that I have for them is sunflower, who look to the sun whichever way the sun is going. I mean, they have very flexible necks. They have very flexible necks, and Delhi is creeping with these sunflowers. Like every national capital, it has so many sunflowers. My God, every time the sun gets up, they come and say, isn't it better than the last one? When we say it's the same, they don't believe. So you have all types. Now the sunflowers have got together and to cover their, what I would call their unacceptable conduct, they seek support in numbers. Sunflower A looks at sunflower B and says, aren't we beautiful? Isn't the sun beautiful? And things like that. So we have a lot of these quislings who have ganged up, mainly for favors. Mainly for terms are strictly favors. And those who have come out in opposition to the present establishment, I feel I was with them for a long time. I still am in a different manner. They are like giraffes. They stick their neck out a bit too much. So I mean, like somebody who's waiting with a chopper's block. Now, what do they gain or lose? The primary gain they have is repaying dividends back to the conscience. They have the satisfaction of saying, "Hey, boss man, the moment I was freed from the shackles of silence, I went back to what I was expected of my position and my duty by conscience." Number two, they miss out a lot, in the sense that every time there's a committee formation or something coming up or something of a little bit of, something, lollipops of different type. The present establishment looks at them and said, "Ye kal list mein hai na? Isn't he on the blacklist?" Out. So you get into what we call the blacklist. So we have the Sunflowers on the yellow list and you have us on the blacklist. We have served together. And for many, we knew that they were like this. They were made of this material.
But you've had sunflowers in every establishment.
Yes. You have it. So we shouldn't.
That's the bigger nature and the more generic nature of the bureaucracy, isn't it? To be a sunflower.
Yes.
Right.
And others like us get kicked around from A to B to C. And
you, by virtue of where you were very involved, or at least I won't even say involved, you watched very, very closely and was a participant in the Bengal elections to a great extent. And do you see, I'm not going to ask about the Bengal elections because that we have sort of analyzed over and over again, but do you see any of the conditions or the larger lessons that you drew from that election applying it themselves to Uttar Pradesh?
See, there are different layers of what happened in Bengal. One is that Bengal has a culture of coexistence. 66% of the Bengalis are Muslims. You must realize that. We have the largest chunk of Muslims among any provincial groups anywhere in India.
Right.
I mean, in undivided India. And while the Muslim clusters are all along the Indus and to the west of it, the clustering, beyond the Indus, the only major clustering is Bengal. I'm not, of course, taking the post-partition divides. So Bengal has about 2 out of 3 Bengalis are Muslims. And one is a Hindu. So they have got into this culture of coexistence, which unfortunately did not take deep roots in Punjab. And there are various historical, sociological reasons why this happened. In Punjab, the ruling gentry was Islamic. In Bengal, the ruling gentry was Hindu. So all sorts of things were there, but there is this thing that Bengali first and religion comes after that.
Always, yes.
So that sort of thing that worked. Now, that does not work in UP. UP, the divide is rather sharp, has always been sharp. But then there are regions and cultures. UP cannot be taken as one political culture. UP has several cultures. The folk culture dominated Bhojpur East, largely folk culture dominated rural Brajbhumi, Bundelkhand and others out of it. Awadh with its own center of Awadhi culture and Awadhi ethos. So they have their different ways of looking at it. So we don't get that integrated view as you had in Bengal. In Bengal, of course, the North Bengal people have a separate identity. But this time, they retained their identity by voting for the BJP. The BJP's main stronghold was North Bengal. But let me put it this way, the rest of Bengal swung in one way. Don't hassle us on this division. So the culture played a very big role, which I don't see in UP. disgust played a very big role. Now, this disgust cannot be measured with a thermometer because the people are more clever than what you think they are.
Yeah.
Till the last exit poll, the Bengal voter did not tell you what he was doing. So not a single exit poll got it right. Not a single forecast got it right. The voter, when he's angry, says what you'd like to hear and does what he likes to do. That is one character I saw in the first election I conducted. That was 1977, which was Indira. We were no other party existing. So one felt, now I am retired, I can tell you, felt a little disappointed. But when the votes were being counted, anyone who had stood against Indira had won. So once the people are determined, they don't go about with a megaphone, with a microphone, announcing that this is it. They say, ye bhi ho sakta, wo bhi ho. So pollsters won't give you the picture. If the anger of the people of UP has been consolidated under the ground, it shall burst forth onto the EVM machine without you and I understanding. So there is a glimmer of hope. Okay. UP has had the worst record where administration, where COVID and many other things are concerned.
Right.
Now, Yogi is banking on the stimulation that these activities may have given him. We are banking on the disgust factor that it has engendered, and that will not come out on the surface until the EVM buttons are pressed. As in Bengal, no one got it right. No one.
Even about EVMs, do you believe in that whole conspiracy theory that these are rigged, given the results of Bengal elections?
No, you see, it can't be, because there are too many cross layers functioning. That in the sense, the bureaucracy thrives on its checks and balances. If the Tehsildar is told to do it, he may do it. Then the sub-divisional magistrate says, what the hell is going on?
Yeah.
So, you have those things, too much of a public body, but one can't be too sure that certain persons may be determined down the line in certain pockets to collude. And if that collusion takes place at 4 or 5 different levels in a particular area, where the DM, the SDM, the collector, the sub-collector, the whole lot of them are a particular bunch of compliant creatures, sunflowers, or fanatics, if I put it. That fanaticism has got into the blood and it's being encouraged.
Right.
Directly encouraged. And if they think they are doing a duty to their whatever. So there is scope for interventions in certain, or interpolations in certain areas. But though I'm part of the EVM report and have gone into the possibilities of manipulation, as a practitioner, I feel that it can't be so big. It can't be on a large scale. That's my submission. But you never know. In swing constituencies where 500 votes matter here and there, 400, 500 votes matter here and there, if somebody decides to play foul.
Like booth capturing, that would happen then, it would swing.
Something like that. Something akin to that.
Right. So I wanted to sort of draw it to an end about the institutions of democracy. Now we know also, we don't have the time to discuss all, but I'll talk about the media, because you've just tweeted also about the teleprompter doing in 8 seconds what the media did in 8 years.
8 years,
right?
Yes.
And there have been a lot of tweets and messages from you about the media. Now, since I am also from the media, how much damage have we done to the system?
Let me first tell you that why I have a soft corner and why this very proprietorial attitude to the media. I started from the media in a way,
Okay.
in a way. While I was still in college and post-college, I was associated with the media. It's great fun. And at one point of time, I thought...
It was great fun.
It was. So, I mean,
Super.
at one point of time, I had seriously considered getting in. But this lottery of sitting in the exam undid a lot of things. But I had never even imagined that they would be foolish enough to take me in. But since they did, I decided to play along. Yeah. Nobody leaves it at that point. So that sort of thing happened. And therefore, I know what makes a copy. I know things like that. I know the unenviable...
Yes.
Unenviable task of the sub-editor. I'm aware of what the beat is, how to steal a story. So these things are known to me. I'm more sympathetic. Now, there I have had my friendship ranges across to some of the finest media men. And some of the finest media men who encouraged me in spite of being in the wrong profession. Where George Burgess, Nihal Singh, I mean, a lot of them, C.R. Irani. Yeah. C.R. Irani, for instance. So a lot of them, Subhash Chakravarti. So I've had a lot of people like that. Dilip Mukherjee, who had been very kind to me, you know. And George Burgess was so indulgent. I mean, till the last day. He said, "You don't belong to it." I said, "Sir, you're insulting my service. You don't belong to it," and all that. It's more of a sympathetic criticism. The way they have captured the media is something of a lesson. We just, we
had a lesson in the emergency, and I thought that we had learned it because we were the post-emergency generation, really, that came in. And you felt a very vibrant media. And now again, we don't seem to have learned that lesson. Controlled.
You see, the too many factors have played in.
Yeah.
Too many factors have played in. They got hold of the critical majority. Excepting a few papers, a few houses like the Hindu, the Telegraph,
just about,
and something, but Express also comes out with a few bold stuff, and Telegraph is outstanding. The Hindu, Frontline, they're outstanding. So some have said, have taken up the challenge. Others, the compulsions of the economics of running the media are getting so impossible that others have decided to sing along. There's a logic that I asked a prominent proprietor in the evening. He said, "Yaar, you can't go against the people either, na? You can't be Casablanca." I said, "The movie or the boy?" So that's the boy. So you can't be Casablanca. So the boy on the burning deck. So he had his logic. I said, "You remind me of my sunflower friends, but never mind. Let's still be friends." So the media has been a great disappointment in this struggle against Indo-fascism. Indo-fascism is not exactly Euro-fascism. You have to realize, in this struggle against Indo-fascism, individual newsmen will stand out in history. Individual newsmen stood out in the 1975-77 period also. But by and large, the media capitulated. They capitulated. So there are papers we keep watching. The media could have been individual, but do what? Everybody can't come out and start an online channel. Everybody can't come out, start an online one. So they if you have to stick back, you learn to lace your words. That's all.
Yeah.
The editor knows you are the wrong type, but he says, "Yaar, isko thoda wo kar do." So that happens.
That happens. So my last question is something that I've been called, and I'm going to call you the same or describe you as the same, as a secular fundamentalist. Would you think that you are? And does that make you a sort of a misfit in the world that you live in?
You see, secularism is a religion. My religion is secularism. I've named my son Shaukat. So, I mean, it's something of a belief system in the sense that we do not divide the world like that. I am proud to be called a secular fanatic, if you ask me. It's badge of honor to be called a secular fanatic. Because unless secularism reaches certain levels of fanaticism, it cannot take on the poison that is being spread by the other camp. Secularism is not, in the process, we are fulfilling our duty to two major institutions, two major callings. One is the civilization to which I belong. I was not given an option form. Tick, which religion will you be born into? Tick, which caste do you want to be born into? No, I was not given an option form. Neither were you. So since we were not given option forms, why do you blame the passenger for which bus he got into? So that's been stupid. I'll call it outright stupid and dangerously stupid. So secularism has also to leave the parlors and sweet-talking drawing rooms out onto the streets. One of the reasons why I've come into the hurly-burly of politics is the pen has its limitations.
Absolutely.
Has its limitations.
Right.
And if one has to take it out, let's see how we can take it out. We all have to cross over and become secular fundamentalists, secular zealots, call it whatever you will. Hinduism is an all-embracing religion. It's an accommodative religion. It's a very broad-based, tolerant religion. You don't pervert it to this limit.
Right.
Don't pervert it.
Right.
That's it.
That, I think, should be the last word. Thank you so much. Thank you for giving us this time.
Thank you, Seema.
Thanks. The bureaucrat and the politician. The relationship between. Jawhar Sircar has given us an insight, talked about the sunflowers and the giraffe. He's talked about how politics has worked for him, in what way, not in the hurly-burly of politics, but as a mentor and an advisor. And he's taken us through his journey into the present environment where we are now going into elections in UP, and what are the differences between the two states, Bengal, where Mamata Banerjee registered a resounding victory, and now UP, where everybody is wondering which way the voter will vote. Will it be Yogi and the BJP, or will it be Akhilesh Yadav, the Samajwadi Party? And Mr. Sircar has also given us hope by raising the flag of secularism. He, as a secular fundamentalist, believes that that is the way to go.